House Farm. I'm wearing my sweater today. By the way, if you want a cool Teal House Farm sweater or mug, we finally figured out how to link our swag shop to YouTube, so it should be pretty easy to find. But today, sorry I look exhausted. This weekend was up and down, and I'll tell you about it in a minute because it has to do with the theme of today's video. And I will also apologize for this side noise here. I got my bread maker running right now for dinner. But today I want to talk about something I've been thinking about a little bit, and we're going to call it on the theme of when sustainability is unsustainable. But it's really when any goals you have in your life, you know, when they get to the point, the tipping point, where your goal is more important than like your own physical or mental health or well-being, when the goal kind of like takes over everything and you really need to sit and like reprocess what is important. And we had some things happen this weekend that reconfirmed our ideas that we've been kind of going over the last year or so, of to back away from some of the things that we would consider like standard on the American homestead, and to reevaluate what our goals are for our family, for our homestead. We're still here homesteading. We're still doing a lot of things we were doing, but I'm going to talk about it in a minute. It's going to make it all clear. But while I am doing that, I'm making myself some consolation cookies. These are some of my favorites. And extra benefit is the kids do not like these. These are ginger snap cookies, like the ones you dip in a coffee. I think they're delicious with a cup of coffee. The kids don't like the molasses cookies, so they won't eat them. So this is just for me and Sam to enjoy after a kind of a tough weekend. So you see Ivy there in the corner? Yeah, you don't. They're not gingerbread, they're ginger snaps, but you guys don't like them, so it's okay. Sorry. So if you hear also the background noise too, the kids are all using tablets or watching a movie because everybody is sick this weekend. Okay, I'm ready. So when we first originally moved out here, we bought this farm. We only had 2 kids, and our goal was to be as sustainable as possible, meaning not needing input out from outside society, you know, being completely off grid eventually. The kids are all, they have this competition. One person turns up their tablet and then everybody turns up theirs, so theirs is the loudest, and all of a sudden all the tablets are in 10. So Ivy's telling everybody to turn it down for me. But the idea is that we wouldn't need, like, we could live on very little because we wouldn't need to be buying anything. We wouldn't be buying electricity. We'd be growing and raising our own food, all those kinds of things. Were kind of our goals. And the longer that we have been doing this and living this lifestyle, while those are not bad goals, and why those goals, some people who you can watch on YouTube have achieved those goals, you know, and they love living that way. We discovered that that sort of lifestyle was probably not very, I won't say sustainable. It was not what we wanted maybe long term for our family. We realized that a lot of the things that you give up to live that way were things that we felt negatively impacted our children, negatively impacted ourselves, because you lose a lot of freedom when you are that tied to your land. So quite a while ago, we gave up on the idea of going off-grid. We've talked about that in a lot of different videos, but it came down to what was best for our children. As you know, we have a child that has a lot of medical needs, and living without electricity just is not practical for her. Now, we did consider, you know, maybe we'll go 100% solar. That was something we considered for several years. Right now, though, the cost of going cost of producing enough solar, so buying the equipment and keeping it functioning and all that kind of stuff, the cost of that, it would have taken 8 years worth of our average electricity bill to pay off what it costs to get that much solar. And then you figure by the time you get 8 years in, things are going to start needing replaced. So it was not financially beneficial, believe it or not, to go solar for our needs. Now, you may be watching this and be like, the only thing I need is to be able to run a refrigerator. But you are not living the life that we are living and the things that we need to be able to have for our child and her medical needs and her health. It's a little bit different. We have a larger electricity requirement, I guess you could say. So we dropped that idea first. And then it kind of felt, I can't describe it, but it felt like a weight off my shoulders when we made that decision. Like, oh my gosh, like we don't have to do everything. And just because we don't do everything doesn't mean that what we are doing is not important. And so recently we came to the decision, I don't know if I can get this molasses jar open. Oh, there we go. that maybe we didn't really like, at least at this point in our lives, didn't really like having dairy animals. We've had dairy goats for 5 years. I won't say that we hated it. It has not been a bad experience. We've learned a lot. The girls enjoy helping milking. It's fun to make cheese and things like that. But the day-to-day requirement of having a dairy animal, you cannot go anywhere or do anything that requires you to be gone more than just daylight hours, because somebody's got to be around to milk. Now, we have done some like kid sharing with our goat, and that does work for a while. But at some point they wean the kid, and then you are the sole milker. And then not only do you have to keep your milking schedule, but you also have to be prepared to process all that milk. It's just time consuming, and that's something that doesn't sound like a big deal until you're actually responsible for doing it every day. And this weekend, which got a little bit crazy, just made me feel, I guess, encouraged that this was the right step for us to go ahead. We are currently in the process of trying to sell our dairy setup. We have a really good milking Nubian goat, and she's just had 2 doe babies, and we have like our breeding buck and a second breeding buck so that you don't mix your genes up, if that makes sense. But we were just going to sell that as like a homestead setup, that we were going to get out of the dairy business, at least for the next few years. But this weekend really encouraged me that we had made the right choice for our family. So this weekend, just out of the blue, after almost 8 months, Annie had another seizure, and it was early in the morning, and we were very fortunate that with her type of epilepsy, she's aware when it's starting, and she came and got help, and we were able to help her and keep her safe. But we did end up needing to go to the emergency room, which happens a lot because her seizures do not respond well to the medication you can give at home to stop them. So almost every time, not every time, okay, I'll say maybe like 50% of the time, it's a 50-50 shot whether or not the medication is going to work. We end up going to the emergency room, and if you are needing to milk something, then one parent is not available to go to the emergency room. And that actually creates a problem you wouldn't think of, because you have a situation where somebody is not able to be safe on their own. I'm trying to think how to describe this without putting too much meaning out there. One parent needs to be able to ride in the car with her, next to her, or holding her, and the other parent needs to be able to drive. So it takes 2 of us to go. We live rurally. Hospital is not close. And if we get to our little local hospital and they are not able to stabilize her, it's a transport to St. Louis, which is 2 hours away. And you can't be here to milk, to take care of the animals, or you can't go and be with her in that time of need. You can't just, our in-laws are wonderful about watching the kids in time of emergency, but they don't know how to milk the goats. They could watch the kids for us so we could both be with Annie, but nobody can milk the goat. And so several times in her little life, mommy or daddy were not able to go with her to the hospital and be with her in that time of need because somebody had to stay on the farm. Because we've made this decision that we don't want to milk, we're trying to sell the animals. We've just kept the kids with our dairy goat all the time. So we don't have to worry about milking her right now, which was a relief. We were both able to go to the hospital with Annie and be with her. We were fortunate she didn't need to transport to a larger hospital. We were able to bring her home, and she's doing much better today. But it ended up being somebody. We think we're going to blame Ivy for this one. Sorry, Ivy. Brought home COVID from, I think, one of our homeschool get-togethers or gymnastics class. And while for all the other kids, it literally hasn't been more than like a day worth of just little sniffles, not anything extraordinary. Nobody had a fever or anything. But for Annie, like everything else, it went from a little deal to a big deal really quickly. And it just reaffirmed my feeling and my decision that it is okay to look at what your goals are and to be like, I need to reevaluate this. We came out here with this goal, being completely off grid, being so sustainable, having dairy animals and, raising our meat and, a garden that is a certain size, and being like, what, for the life that we now have, those things are too much. I admit that I cannot do those and provide the best life for my family, that those goals are so up here that yes, I probably could achieve them. I could keep fighting for them every day, but I would be miserable trying to achieve them my children would be miserable because I would be miserable trying to achieve them. And so they are not the best goals anymore for our family as a whole. And then being able to sit down and say, you know what, our sustainability goals are unsustainable for our family. So how do we keep the core ideals that we think are important and incorporate them into our lives here on the farm in a way that allows us to be successful in what we're doing, to still uphold our core values of taking care of, this beautiful earth that God has created, making sure that we are not taking more than we are giving back to the earth, being, conscientious in our choices of how we do things. How do we do that in a way that works for us in the situations that we are in now? And for us in the last year, what it has come down to is focusing on the things that do not need just a massive amount of time daily. So we are looking at homesteading in a way that will function well around unpredictable family schedules. If we had to drop everything and spend 3 days in the hospital, which has happened before, what would a homestead look like that would allow us to do that? At least to the point that if we had to ask somebody else to come in and help us, what would be something easy for somebody to just step in and be able to do for us? And to us, that means not keeping dairy animals. That means eventually making sure that we have backup heat systems, that if we have to leave in the middle of winter, right now we just heat with a wood stove, which is fine if you're here all the time, but if you ever have to leave and somebody isn't here to shove wood in it every 3 hours, your pipes are going to freeze and burst. And we don't have any sort of backup heat system for those types of eventualities. And that's just no longer practical for our family. What I'm saying is give yourself the permission to change your goals, to realize that maybe things are different than you originally planned, or maybe you've changed. Maybe you're not the same person you were when you started whatever on your journey. Maybe you've homeschooled for a while and you just don't like it, or your kids are struggling with it. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to reassess, look at your life and say, gosh, what can we do to make things better? Because right now, the way things are, it's not working well for me. Changing your mind or doing something different doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you've learned about yourself. It means you've had new life experiences and new opportunities. Sometimes, like in the situation we have now, it's easy to feel like that events that are just outside of your control. I have no control over her health and when her brain is going to decide that it's going to fire off and we're going to have problems and it's going to be a tough month. Like, I have zero amount of control over that. And it's easy to let something like that just make you feel really down and depressed. But we can take those things as an opportunity to reevaluate what's important to us and how we can change our goals and how we live our life to be something that fits better with the reality that we have now. I find that setting goals is something that keeps me motivated. It took me a while to get to the point, though, where I felt comfortable changing, where Sam and I both felt comfortable changing our ultimate goals, because it made us feel a little bit like failures. When we started on the homestead, and started YouTubing, we felt like, gosh, if we don't have a milk animal, nobody will watch us. We're not real homesteaders if we don't have a milk animal, or if we're not raising 40,000 chickens, But that is not authentically who we are right now. It's not authentically where we are in life and what is practical for our family. And just this last year, we have just come to peace and given ourselves permission to make changes and to do what seems like it is the best steps for us to still continue to live sustainably, but without the pressure of trying to reach goals that are no longer a good fit for our family. That it's okay to change our minds. So, as always, we bring you along for the ride. We're trying lots of new fun things, like a brand new type of gardening, something that has been something I have wanted to try for years, but have never just been able to have the wherewithal to get out there and do it. And with a lot of those other pressures off my back as far as the homesteading world goes, I now have the time to achieve this new goal. And it's something I'm really excited about. So I hope you take this as an encouragement to find your new goals, to look at your life and say, gosh, where do I want to go next? What is something I've always wanted to try? Or what could I change in my life to help bring more peace and joy to daily living? That's all for today, and we will see you guys very soon.